Hi guys, here we have it. This is gsno.com and I'm here with the unboxing of the Google Pixel 7 Pro, the phone that everybody's talking about. Mostly because it's the first placed handset in the DxOMark top, even beating Huawei phones, Samsung phones and the iPhone 14 Pro. This is it with the famous visor at the back side, with a glass back and a glass front, and the first vibe I'm getting from it is that reminds me of the Huawei Mate 40 Pro, perhaps even wider than that. It's a wide and long phone, so one-hand usage will be a bit of a problem. Another problem I spotted after spending some minutes with it is the fact that you're tempted to press the higher volume button instead of the power button, because it comes in handier. Okay, so it's our very first contact with Android 13 aside from the Pixel 7 Pro. And just in case you're wondering, in Europe we got it from Amazon Germany for 899 euros for the 128GB version or 999 for the double storage version. It's an unboxing, so let's see what's inside the box. Well, not much actually, on account of the fact that we don't have a charger. We do have a bunch of manuals and things to read here. Then we come to this adapter from USB-C to USB-A, which helps with your backup and data transfer. And then there's the USB-C to USB-C cable. And I would say we're pretty much done with the content of the box. Now the phone itself is a whole different story. Now what we're dealing with here is a handset that has done a few upgrades from the predecessor, but has kept the bulk of the design, only changing parts of the camera visor here where it meets the frame. Now we have what I would like to call a perfect degree of angularity and curves. The back side and the front side may be curved a bit, but they meld gently into the frame, the aluminum frame, which becomes rather flat and easy to grip. So I should probably also mention the thickness, 8.9mm, and the weight, 212 grams, which is quite hefty. But the fact that this is pretty flush makes it sit perfectly on a flat surface. We have Gorilla Glass Victus at the front side, while at the back side we have Gorilla Glass Victus again, aluminum frame. This hue we have here is called Hazel. Well, it's basically a combo of green and gray. The backside draws fingerprints, but thanks to the color, you don't see them. It's got IP68 certification, so it can take a dunk in water not deeper than 1.5 meters. I have to say I'm loving this design and how comfy the device is after using it for a few minutes. Okay, and of course I'm also appreciating the metal enclosure for the camera, which looks much more premium than other camera modules. Now, as far as the screen is concerned, the panel which we have here is a AMOLED 6.7 inches, and it's of the LTPO variety, meaning that the refresh rate can drop to a very low area and save power. It can go up to 120 Hz, we have HDR10 Plus support, and a quite generous resolution of 3120 over 1440 pixels. That's the screen, and I'm pretty impressed by it so far, while if you go inside the phone, you'll be greeted by an unfamiliar face. The Google Tensor G2 CPU. It's made by Samsung on a 5nm process. It's an octa-core chip with a Mali G710MC10 GPU. We're lucky enough to have the highest power version of the phone, or well, close to it, 12 gigs of RAM and 256GB of storage, LPDDR5 and UFS 3.1. Now the battery we have here will be appreciated because it's basically the maximum capacity you see on flagships nowadays, 5000 mAh with 23 watt charging. It could have been better. The good news is that we also have 23 watt wireless charging, not just wired, and reverse wireless charging. Now for security, you just saw me press the volume up button instead of the power button. For security, we're relying on this fingerprint scanner here, which is quite snappy, but I also activated the face unlock, just so you know. Aside from that, we have stereo speakers. You can see here those two slits. One of them is for the speaker and the other speaker is here at the top side, a very well hidden slit. Okay, now aside from that, I'm spinning the device all around and checking out its design. This part here intrigues me and I have to find out what it's for. It looks like a slot of sorts, or maybe an emitter. I have to look into it. Okay, so as far as the connectivity is concerned, the phone is obviously fully packed. It's got your 5G, Wi-Fi 6E, ultra wideband, Bluetooth 5.2. There's also dual band GPS and NFC, obviously, for your transaction needs for your contactless payments. USB-C 3.2 at the bottom, in case you're wondering about the port. The other colors for the phone, aside from hazel, are obsidian and snow. And now I think it's time to discuss the camera. I mean, it's well hidden and all, but you're going to definitely notice it if you're using a white background. So if we skip the dark mode and anything like that, we should be able to see it properly. Okay, so we talked about the punch hole here at the top side. It hides the selfie camera, which is a 10.8 megapixel shooter, sadly lacking autofocus. What it does have is a 4K 60 frames per second capture and an ultra wide angle, which actually surprised me. Now if you go to the back side, this is the triple back camera with a surprise. We have a periscope shooter here, and it's quite impressive actually. It's a 48 megapixel camera, f3.5 aperture, optical image stabilization, and 5x optical zoom. The other two cameras include a 50 megapixel sensor, which is supposed to be a Samsung GN f1.9 aperture, and multi-directional autofocus, as well as laser autofocus and optical image stabilization. Finally, the third camera is a 12 megapixel ultra wide shooter with autofocus, which means we're getting macro. We're also getting a very large degree, 126, compared to the usual 112 or 120. This is the dual LED flash, quite small here, and a microphone next to it. This ensemble can capture 4K video at 60 frames per second, as well as 10-bit HDR, and it's aided by a gyroscope for its electronic stabilization. Here we have some of the options. These are the camera modes: photosphere, lens, and panorama. This is the cinematic capture. We also have the video capture here, with options like normal, slow motion, and time lapse. There's also a stabilization option here: standard, lock, active, and cinematic pan. Quite generous compared to the usual stabilization. A regular camera action photo. This is the portrait. We also have motion, which includes two subsettings: long exposure and action pan. Well, a long exposure is supposed to catch the moving subjects and blur the background, while I think it's the other way around. So I think that action pan is able to capture the subjects moving around and create a blurry background, while the other one, long exposure, leaves a trail behind them and keeps the background pretty clear. Okay, so let's see what else. We also have night sight available here for your nighttime capture, and that's pretty much it, unless I'm missing anything. Okay, so let's talk about other things now. The software we're running on here, I should probably mention it's Android 13. A bit of a selling point for the phone. It's the first phone with this software that we have here. You're probably wondering what's special about it. First things first, you're getting 3 years of Android updates and 5 years of security updates. I would say it's crazy fluid, even coming from the recently tested iPhone 14 Pro. I feel that everything moves in a very fluid manner here in the scrolling department, in the navigation department, in the website department. I'm happy with the fluidity of the experience, and I have to say it actually surpasses my expectations. One interesting feature which you will have available here is called theming. So theming is the fact that aside from the usual customization you were able to do on account of the whole material you thing, you're now able to take on the album art of a musical album and apply it to your music player. That happens automatically, which is quite nice to see. We also have spatial audio as a novelty here for the handset, basically 3D audio, much like you have on a PS5. And we also have call screening, which is basically a way of talking to the bots, which will meet you if you have a problem with customer service. It will also list the options on the screen, making it easier to access them. There's also call captions. Imagine that you're inside the school and you're doing the class, you're not allowed to talk on the phone. Things will be transcribed to you, so you don't have to use your voice. And you can also write as a response to that. You don't need an internet connection for that, which is all the more impressive. And you can also transcribe what people are saying. That's another impressive feature that the device has, even when the phone is in your pocket. It's good for interviews though. It's limited to a few countries in the world, and I'm guessing only to English so far. Now, one of my favorite features has to do with the camera again. So if you go here, you'll see that if you tap here, you can see some sliders for white balance, temperature, light and dark, something like that. Okay, so if I do a quick photo like this, it should be a bit blurry, as you can see, intentionally blurry. But if you go into the photos, you'll be able to unblur it pressing here. Unblur. This is actually more impressive if I actually took an older shot from, I don't know, back in 1950, a wedding photo of someone, which was blurry, and made it more clear. And you can also change the degree of your unblurring here. So, well, that's what you get. You can also enhance and apply some dynamic tweaks to it. So basically, the NPU has become smarter with this brand new Tensor CPU. Now, aside from that, there's an interesting feature in the recents area. So in the recents, aside from showing the apps you have open in the background, by the way, check out the score we achieved in Antutu. This is just Antutu 8, not as relevant as Antutu 9, but still not as high as expected. Anyway, here I can go to anything I want here, for example, and do a screenshot or select. Select is able to pull text and images and let you copy them, share them, or search them. Now, if I were in Photos right now, and I did the same thing with the recents, I can select the photo and have it available for copying, sharing, or saving. Basically recognizes text and images easily. Okay, so if you want some spoilers, I can show you some scores we achieved before we do the review. By scores, I mean obviously benchmarks. There's this one here, which is not that impressive, but also not very relevant, and this one here, which is the Geekbench 5 score. So, if you're wondering if Samsung has maybe rebranded an Exynos chip, this is the result we achieved, 988 over 2610. Keep in mind that the Galaxy S22 Ultra, with its Exynos 2200, achieved 1184 and 3716. So if this is a rebranding, it's most likely a rebranding of the Exynos 2000 rather than the 2200. So, well, that's about it. And I'm also slightly bummed and slightly disappointed by the continuous usage time, which you can see here. The Better Life test. Expected a bit more in this regard. Okay, so a bunch of conclusions. First and foremost, I'm loving the design and how comfy it is. At the same time, not loving the power button placement, and I'm still looking forward to discovering the extras that Android 13 actually offers, because some of them don't feel like they're available all over the world and don't feel all that useful, if you ask me. Okay, so by the way, check out this widget picker. It's been changed a bit from Android 12, unless I am mistaken or not remembering it correctly. Wallpaper and style. And here you also have the home settings. Okay, so that's about it. First impression is positive regarding the design. I expected slightly more from the performance and battery life, but that's a thing we'll talk about in the review. That's it from gsno.com. Hope you enjoyed this unboxing. We'll be back with more soon. Goodbye.